and welcome again to the Why Not Today podcast. And today I'm going to talk about the power of doing things together, why collaborations helps us get unstuck faster. So I always start with a Why Not Today moment, and I'm going to talk more about this in the episode. But the other day, a friend of mine and I were doing a little painting and redecorating and in my bedroom, and I said, I never watch TV in my bedroom. She's like, then why do you have a TV sitting here? I'm like, that's a good question. And so it was just that aha moment that I didn't even think about. Why the heck is it there if I don't use it? So I'm going to talk about that a little more. But that was a Why Not Today moment when I made a decision, had a thought, made a decision, and acted on it. And we're going to talk about that, as I said, in a minute. So how many of us have had something on our to-do list for months that really should only take an hour? I know one thing I had on my to-do list a while ago was to change my voicemail. And I said it took me a year and about 5 minutes to do it, a year to think about it and 5 minutes to actually get it done. So maybe one of those things is organizing a room, making a decision, finishing a project, or even taking the next step of your business or starting a business. So we know what needs to be done most of the time, but for some reason we keep putting it off. Then someone walks in the room and looks at the situation for about 10 seconds, asks one simple question and changes everything. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go in, but that's what happened to me. And it reminded me really of something that's super important. Sometimes the fastest way to get unstuck is simply doing things together. A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with somebody and we literally working on my Google and my Gmail and my Google Docs and calendar and all those things. And there was a couple things we were trying to figure out. I didn't know everything. She knew some things, but then there's some things that she didn't know. And just sitting next to each other, we got stuff done. And it was amazing. So welcome back again to the Why Not Today podcast. And this is the second episode in season 5, which is crazy. And I'm your host, Leslie Kane. And if you're new here and you haven't listened to the podcast before or watched it, we're all about courage and really taking action and building the life and business that actually feels aligned for who you are. Aligning into things that to your values, what gives you joy. And I think when you're doing things in alignment with your values, then it doesn't feel like you're working. It doesn't feel hard. And can actually be fun. So the last couple episodes, we've been talking about something that keeps showing up again and again in my life as I do work with different clients. It's community. So 2 weeks ago, I actually did an episode talking about why courage grows faster in community and how we're never meant to do this alone. I mentioned in that episode, and I've shared the story so many times, and I guess I should shout out to Jessica, that in tears, we were sitting at the Eldon Street Tea Shop. And she said, nobody ever told me how lonely it would be to be an entrepreneur. And so we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And then last week, my anniversary episode celebrating 4 years of Why Not Today podcast was with one of my sisters, Alicia. And we talked about the courage to say yes and the power of being a connector. We also talked about our dad and how he had the natural ability to connect people and encourage them to reach out to others. And it's funny, as I am working on some household projects, I came across a box of memories. And this goes back to my community and connection that literally I had an autograph book from, I think I was maybe 12 years old in elementary school. And I'm still connected to some of those people. Isn't that crazy? I found a newspaper article announcing the beginning of the Reston at that point. It was called Board of Commerce. And then my dad as being the first president. So community and connection, that goes way back. So today I want to continue that conversation with something really simple, but really powerful. And that is the power of doing things together. One of the things I want to remind you of today is this. You don't have to do everything alone. So many times you think you have to figure it out by ourselves. We try to solve problems on our own. We push through projects alone, and sometimes it actually slows us down. And I was at a event, beginning of like one of the first in-person events during COVID. And they were talking about the effect of COVID and everybody working in isolation. And so I still remember days when I worked in an office, it was a while ago, but you learned things, you helped, you collaborated with people, you walked into their office and had conversations, and you're trying to figure something out. And in this event, these speakers were talking about how it is really hurting, especially the younger generation coming into the workforce. They were talking about CPA firm in particular, and said, when somebody is working at home by themselves in isolation and they have an issue, a problem, something they need solved, they spend a lot of time and then money, because billable hours, trying to figure something out on their own. And if they've been working with somebody and they just said, hey, Susie, how do you do this? Or if you ever had this issue, then they actually might get the answer in minutes as opposed to hours researching themselves. So a few years ago, a friend of mine and I, we both had things we wanted to do in our house. And we both been putting them off. I wanted to paint a wall. She wanted to clean a couple closets, organize a room, and actually one closet that she put off a lot of times. And it just, nothing huge, but the kind of thing that's on your list for months. And it's like painting is not it's not one of my strengths. I can do it. I don't love it, but I can do it. And it's much easier to do it with somebody else. So instead of doing our projects on our own, we tag team. And so the first time we did this, we started at my house getting ready to paint. I think we put the primer on. Then we went back to her house and we cleaned out a closet. And then we came back to my house and put a coat of paint on, went back to her house, cleaned out another closet, which she said takes her all day. And we had it done in about an hour. And then we together went to Goodwill and dropped off stuff, went to the dump. And then, of course, we had to reward ourselves with a little retail therapy with some fun new things. And we could have felt like a long list of chores actually turned into a really fun day. We got things done. We had great conversations. We helped each other make decisions we'd been putting off, and it made it easier. And it was fun. And boy, was that rewarding afterwards. Well, this last weekend, I've been wanting to paint my bedroom forever. Again, painting is not one of my strengths, nothing I love. And she had mentioned the weekend before that she wanted to paint her basement. I'm like, how about we tag team again? So we started at Home Depot. We went there often. And we started with her basement and started getting things ready to paint. Then we came over to my house and we got everything ready, put our first coat of paint on, and we timed ourselves the whole time. And at one point we're like, oh, we could do this as a career. At the end, we're not 12 anymore. We both were pretty sore and felt it. I think we had 17,000 steps on Saturday. But in the course of the weekend, and we did do it Saturday and Sunday, we started with a walk. We made 3 trips to home. Now, I think 4 by the time we were done, trips to Home Depot. We had pizza and cooked dinner together. And not only were those days productive, but it was also fun and getting another viewpoint. And something happened while we were working. It reminded me why collaboration is powerful. So back to this TV story. While we were moving stuff to paint my bedroom, I mentioned never watch TV. It's been sitting there for years. I can really honestly remember like 3 times I turned it on. I don't watch TV. I live in a condo. I can walk from one room to the other. And so she looked at me and she goes, why don't you get rid of it? Honestly, that never crossed my mind. So I got rid of the TV stand, and not only that, but the cable that ran from my living room all the way down the wall, up the wall, across the floor, on the floorboards, which got full of dust and dog hair. I got rid of all that. And oh my goodness, the room felt so much lighter, and it was intentional. The morning when I woke up afterwards, I walked to the room I woke up feeling so refreshed, a new look, a new, just the newness. And sometimes we need that. And it felt refreshing walking into Monday. So the lesson I learned, and this reminded me of something really important, is sometimes the reason we're stuck is not because we don't know what to do. It's because we've been looking at the same situation for so long, cannot see it any other way. And so that's where collaboration becomes powerful, because when someone else walks in a room, they see things you do not see. They ask simple questions like, why do you still have it? Do you really need it? What if you tried this instead? And suddenly something very complicated becomes simple. So I often talk about mentorship, and you can have people that mentor you. You can mentor them. They can be older, they can be younger, or I love the idea of lateral mentors. And it's people that we work side by side. Sometimes they have more experience in one area and we may have it in another. We have bigger businesses. I remember meeting somebody years ago and he sold submarines. And he said the only difference between the two of us was commas and zeros. I sold lipstick, he sold submarines. But lateral mentors can be so powerful because they come from somebody standing beside you, a peer, a friend, someone who is simply looking at the situation from a different perspective. That is what we call a lateral mentor. Someone walking beside you, helping you see differently. And that's what happened with the TV. And you know what? You look at things over and over, you never think about getting rid of them. And so, it suddenly became very obvious when she asked me that question. I know this is a lot about TV, but sometimes we don't need more information. We need a different perspective. So let's talk about that, how that relates to business and community. This is one of the biggest benefits of being a part of a community or a group. When you share what you're working on, you ask people for ideas, you let others into the process. Momentum happens faster. If you have a business partner, then you're bouncing ideas off. If you're with like someone in my inner circle groups in the mortgage business, and she said she needed a fresh perspective as somebody not in the mortgage industry. Sometimes you need somebody coming at it from fresh eyes, a different angle. And so that's what I see a lot in our inner circle group. Someone shares something they've been stuck on, another person shares an idea, a simple idea perspective, and then suddenly a path seems much clearer. Not because the problem was complicated, but because someone else saw it differently. And sometimes the breakthrough we need is sitting right next to us. So I challenge you guys. Is there something you're putting off, a project, a decision, something in your business or life that feels heavier than it should? Instead of trying to do it alone, ask yourself this question. Who could be a lateral mentor for me? A friend, a colleague, someone in your community, someone who can simply look at the situation with fresh eyes. Sometimes the fastest way forward is simply asking someone beside you. Have somebody asking, let me repeat that. Sometimes the fastest way forward is simply having someone beside you saying, let's just do this together. Because when you combine action, collaboration, and fresh perspective, things that feel stuck start moving again. And that's when real progress happens. Collaboration is so important. And, there's so many people that you could work with and look at, and they could actually be competitors. But when you work with together, you can grow. Like Mary Kay always said, if I have an idea and you have an idea, then we each have one idea. But if we share our ideas, we both have two. So I want you to think about who can you collaborate with, who can you bounce ideas with. And as always, if this message resonates with you and you think somebody needs to hear it, share it. And if you're looking for a community of people who believe in courage, connection, and taking action, I'd love to invite you to the Why Not Today community. We have a Facebook group. I do some one-on-one coaching. I'll give you a complimentary coaching call. We have an inner circle, and I'm just kicking off because you guys, I am so about action. A Why Not Today take action, or Why Not Today action, or VIP, let me repeat. Why Not Today VIP action session. Now, that's a good example of collaboration. I've collaborated with a couple of lateral mentors, some friends, some mentors, and also ChatGPT to come up with a name. But do you have anything that you want to get done and you're just avoiding and you really need that person beside you? Maybe some tech support. I had a walk with a friend the other day and she was talking about her husband needing a new iPhone. I'm like, oh, do you have a Costco membership? This is a trick she didn't know about. Are you paying for XM radio too much? Which a lot of people are. There's so many little things. Another friend has a Ring camera and she doesn't get notifications. She thinks it might go to her ex-husband or her parents, but she doesn't see it. So it's one of those things. It doesn't take long to do, but sometimes it takes somebody working with you and collaborating. So what's that thing that you need to do? So if you need some support, I am happy to support you, give you ideas. As I said, we've got an amazing inner circle program and also I can say it all together, the Why Not Today VIP action session. If you're interested, let me know. Reach out to me. Let me see how I can support you. And as I always end episodes with saying, why not today? And I hope this spoke to you, and share it with a friend, like it, review it. And thanks again for joining us. Bye.